Get hit, get on my tracks, take a backseat, hitch home. Take a long ride on my motorbike till I'm ready, raise a little thing called a this thing called love. I just lay a hand on it, this thing called love. I'm get right to it, I'm ready. Raise a little thing called love. 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 Raise a little thing called love.
Join me, CG, every Sunday between 1 and 3 here on Wythenshawe FM 97.2 Soul Heaven, playing the very best of soul and R&B, past and present. Don't miss it.
Sandra's Show. Thank you.
Hello. Not you, Gary. I was just saying hello to the audience. Hello, good evening, and welcome to my part of your day. And I've got a different sort of show today. I've got an interview with a man called Gary. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Sandra.
It's Gary HESELTINE from the UFO Truth Magazine.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for doing this with me. Cheers, Scott. Made up, you said, yeah. Right, so tell me all about the UFO Truth Magazine, how it got started, how you got into UFOs. Take it from the top. Off you go.
Well, there's two questions there, really, but I probably should start with the first one, the second one, which is how I got into the subject.
Yeah.
And that's a long and involving story, but cutting it short, I had a sighting of a strange object when I was about 15 years old with my then girlfriend in Scunthorpe, which is where I'm from. That led to an interest that I carried for many years, but it was only when I joined the police in 1989. By about 1995, I was then a Detective Constable when I came across a glossy magazine in W.H. Smith called UFO Magazine.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, it was then printed out of Ilkley, which wasn't a million miles away from where I worked at Leeds.
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a coincidence.
Yeah, well, that's where, I know Ilkley, because that's where the studios are for the Yorkshire television studios.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So basically that was the case that I started to, it kind of renewed my interest in the subject. I'd been away from it.
Can you tell me, Gary, what was it you saw when you was 15?
I was walking home with my then girlfriend along a very narrow footpath that went down the middle of a large allotment on my right side as if I'm walking forward, a large allotment on my right, and on the left were my comprehensive school fields of the school I used to go to, Frederick Goff. And basically, there were no street lights then, there are now, but at the darkest point, so when you kind of like dark allotments on the right, school fields in darkness on the left, against a summer's night, balmy, one of those balmy nights, no clouds, all the stars are out. We don't get many of these nights, but I then saw what I can only describe as a bright white light, no distinct shape, but it was moving very slowly from right to left, and it was about 2 or 3 times the size of the background stars. It was like at a 60-degree angle, and it was moving from our right to left at this 60-degree angle. Now, what made it a bit different was that as soon as the object went past us, there was a power cut in the area, and all the housing at the end of the alleyway, we could see just behind the object's flight path was plunged into total power cut into the area. Now, the object was moving very slowly in the direction of my home, and I was in the process of walking my then girlfriend home via this footpath. I was pushing my cycle at the time, so I said, get on the bike. And 2 of us on the bike, Lincolnshire Express, Croggering, and I quickly rode down the rest of the alleyway, round a couple of corners, and dropped her off at her house, which was in total darkness. The entire area was in darkness. And then I got back on the bike, went back down the same long footpath, and then got onto a street called Grange Lane South, rode like mad for about a mile. Now, just near to my home, I had this surreal experience of moving from total darkness, power cut, everything's out, and then getting to this bend, a left-hand bend near my home, and the lights were still on. Now, as I got to the bend, I remember glancing over my right shoulder, and because I'd taken a shortcut, I was now ahead of the light. Okay? So the light was behind me, and this is important, I think, because you'll see why. And basically, I went round the corner, went from complete darkness into the light, went round to two more corners, dropped my bike outside my house, rushed inside, and my parents were having supper, so I guess it was sometime at 8:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. And I said, come outside, I think there's going to be a power cut caused by this light. And they both looked at me bemused, as you would. And so they didn't get up. I ran through the hall, ran through the kitchen, into the backyard, turned around to look back at my semi-detached house, just in time to see the light coming over the rooftop of my house. And I held up my arm directly above my head, as if you're saying, please pick me, kind of thing. And as soon as the object went past my arm, and therefore I was behind the flight path of the object, the entire area was plunged into darkness. So how could I, moving from a second geographical position, calculate that there was going to be a power cut? So it's at that point there that I realised that having moved to a second geographical position, that light in some way must have interacted with the power grid, and that's basically how I got into it. Cutting many years, going back to finding that magazine, UFO Magazine, that led me on a path eventually to meet with the editor. And I'd had this idea. I'd been a police officer for 6 years at the time. I had the idea, and I wanted to get involved in active research. But as a DC, a Detective Constable, you know, if there's a rape or something like that, you tend to work many hours. You can't be relied upon as part of a team. So I realised that if I was going to do any kind of research, it was something that had to fit around my particular calendar, as it were, my time schedule. And that's when I came up with the idea of launching a database for British police officers who'd
that
seen
was a good
UFO
idea,
sightings.
that, yeah.
Well, I started off with half a dozen sightings that I knew from books and magazines involving maybe 10 officers. And now, 12 years later, I've now got over 450 cases involving almost 1,000 British police officers. So that's how I've become known within the UFO field.
It's so good that the policemen are coming forward, you know.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's nearly 1,000 police officers is forgive the pun, quite a bit of evidence, I think. But and many of them are reporting really strange objects. And the key statistic, I'm not a big lover of statistics because I've seen too many statistics being manipulated over the years within the police. But what I would say is that the key thing that stands out is that on the database, 73% of all the cases, so that's 73% of 450 cases, which is well over 300, are multiple officer witness cases, anywhere from 2, in one case, up to 24 officers. So, you get groups of 4 and 5 often seen from different geographical positions, because as the message goes around that something's in the sky, different patrol cars will look up from different vantage points and see the same object. So, I think that's quite a telling statistic, that 73% are multiple witness cases. And after almost 24 years, I then felt that the time was right to retire early. I could have gone for another 6 years, but I decided to retire early to devote my time to launching UFO Truth Magazine.
Well, I'm glad you did, because
I had the idea for doing that at the Expo conference in Liverpool in 2012, and I basically, by that time, had met pretty much the world's top researchers over the years, and I just went to them. I'd obviously got a bit of a rapport with some of them, and said, look, I want to launch a magazine. Will you submit an article to me for free? I can't pay you. But let's have all the top researchers in the world working under, in a sense, loosely work under one framework of a magazine, and so people can actually get the best evidence, and that's the idea. And I started with the first issue at the end of June. It's a bi-monthly, 96, so every 2 months.
So you started it this year or last year?
No, this year.
You started this year.
So with 3 issues so far. End of June, end of October, and end of June, end of August, end of October. That's the first 3, and I'm just finishing off the 4th issue, which goes out at the end of December. But if anybody wants to look at the site, it's got arguably the best selection of UFO experts anywhere in the world, and it's www.ufotruthmagazine.co.uk. UFOTruthMagazine.co.uk.
Right, like you was telling me about these people that you've met. Can I ask you about Timothy Good?
Oh, he's a legend. Timothy Good is by far Britain's most